Captain Kim Taeyang stood in the massive chamber of the Galactic Council and felt small for the first time in his life. The room stretched hundreds of meters in every direction, filled with thousands of alien beings from across the galaxy. Some floated in the air. Others sat on strange chairs designed for bodies nothing like his own. The air smelled wrong, tasted metallic on his tongue. But Taeyang kept his face calm and his shoulders straight. Beside him, Ambassador Lee Ji-won adjusted her formal jacket. On his other side, Dr. Park Hana clutched a data tablet containing every piece of information Earth had gathered about the Council in the past 5 years. 5 years since first contact. 5 years since humanity learned they were not alone in the universe. 5 years that now seemed to be ending in disaster. The High Chancellor Vortex rose from his seat at the center of the chamber. He was massive, easily 3 meters tall, with 4 arms and a body covered in chitinous plates that gleamed under the chamber lights. His species had ruled the Council for 2,000 years. When he spoke, his voice came through translation devices that turned his clicking mandibles into words humans could understand. "The matter before this Council is simple," Vortex announced. "The species calling themselves humans have been evaluated. Our scientists have studied their world. Our military has assessed their capabilities. Our economists have calculated their value. The decision is clear." Taeyang felt his jaw tighten. He knew what was coming. They all did. The past 3 weeks of testimony had made it obvious. The Council had already decided humanity's fate before the hearings even began. "Humanity will be granted protected subject status," Vortex continued. "They will benefit from Council protection, Council guidance, and Council wisdom. In return, they will accept Council governors, contribute resources to the common good, and place their military under Council command. This is a generous offer. Many species would consider it an honor." Ambassador Lee stepped forward. Her voice carried across the chamber without amplification, strong and clear. "The people of Earth reject this offer. We are not children who need protection. We are not primitives who need guidance. We are a free people and we will remain free." A wave of sound swept through the chamber. Laughter from some species, angry chittering from others. A few remained silent, watching with interest. Councillor Melkara, the military strategist of the Draxian Empire, stood up. Her reptilian features twisted into what might have been a smile. "You reject our generosity? You dare to refuse the Council? Perhaps you do not understand your situation, little humans. Your star system has resources we need. Your location is strategically valuable. You will comply or you will be made to comply." Dr. Park stepped forward now, her face flushed with anger. "Is that what you call it? Generosity? We have studied your history. We know what happened to the Talari people when they became protected subjects. They had a population of 6 billion. Now they have 2 billion. And none of them control their own government. We know about the Koshari mining worlds, stripped bare and left as dead rocks. We know about the Vintar, whose entire culture was erased because the Council found it inconvenient." The chamber erupted in chaos, aliens shouting in hundreds of languages, translation devices struggling to keep up. Some Council members looked uncomfortable, others looked furious. But Vortex simply raised one of his 4 hands and silence fell. "You speak of old history," Vortex said. "Those were different times. The Council has evolved. But your words prove our point. You are too aggressive, too quick to judge, too dangerous to be left without supervision. The vote has been taken. The decision is made. You have 30 days to accept your new status. After that, enforcement action will begin." Captain Taeyang finally spoke. His voice was quiet, but everyone heard him. "You are making a mistake." Vortex looked down at him from his high seat. "A mistake? We command 3,000 star systems. Our fleet numbers 10,000 ships. Our civilization spans the galaxy. What mistake could we possibly be making with a single world species that only learned to split the atom 200 years ago?" Taeyang met the High Chancellor's gaze without blinking. "You assume we will be easy to break. You assume we will surrender when we see your ships. You assume we are like the other species you have conquered. That is your mistake." "Conquered is such an ugly word," Melkara said. "We prefer integrated. And yes, we do assume you will surrender. Every species does when they see the alternative. War with the Council means extinction. Even you humans must be smart enough to understand that." Ambassador Lee's voice was ice cold. "We understand perfectly. You are offering us a choice between slavery and death, but you do not understand us. Humanity has faced extinction many times in our history. We have survived ice ages and plagues. We have fought wars that killed millions, We have stood on the edge of nuclear annihilation and pulled ourselves back. We do not surrender. We do not bow. We do not break, Dr. Park added, and we learn fast. You have shown us your technology. You have shown us your tactics. You have shown us your weaknesses, though you do not realize it. 5 years is a long time for humans. We have been very busy. Vortex made us sound like grinding metal, threats from a species that has barely left their own planet. This is absurd. The hearing is over. The decision stands. You have 30 days. Use them wisely. Accept your fate with grace and the transition will be peaceful. Resist, and you will learn why no species has successfully defied the Council in 1,000 years. As the 3 humans were escorted from the chamber, Taeyang looked back one last time. He memorized the faces of the Council members, the layout of the room, the positions of the guards. His military training made it automatic. Know your enemy. Know the battlefield. Know what you are fighting for. Outside the chamber, in the corridor leading back to their ship, Ambassador Lee let out a long breath. Well, that went as badly as expected. Worse, Dr. Park said. They are not even pretending this is voluntary. It is conquest dressed up as protection. Taeyang nodded. They think we are weak. They think we will collapse at the first sign of their fleet. They have no idea what is waiting for them back home. Lee smiled grimly. Good, let them be surprised. How long until we reach Earth? 18 hours at maximum speed, Taeyang said. The Council will probably take a week to organize their enforcement fleet. That gives us maybe 3 weeks to prepare. 3 weeks, Park repeated. We have been preparing for 5 years just in case. Admiral Choi has been waiting for this. The colonies have been building in secret. The factories have been running non-stop. We are as ready as we will ever be. Lee looked at both of them. The Council thinks this will be easy. They think we will surrender when we see their ships. They think we are like all the others. Taeyang's expression was hard as steel. Then let us show them what happens when you threaten humanity. Let us show them what a mistake really looks like. Behind them, the Galactic Council continued their session, already discussing how to divide Earth's resources among the member species. They did not know it yet, but they had just made the worst decision in their long history. The galaxy was about to learn a hard lesson about the dangers of underestimating humanity. And the price of that lesson would be paid in blood and fire. Admiral Choi Minho stared at the holographic display floating above the command table. 300 red dots represented the Council's enforcement fleet, currently gathering at a staging point 2 weeks away from Earth. Each dot was a warship larger and more advanced than anything humanity had built before first contact. At least that was what the Council believed. They are not even trying to hide their numbers, said Commander Kang Daeho, studying the display with professional interest. They want us to see them. They want us to be afraid. They want us to surrender before they even arrive, Captain Taeyang added. He had been promoted after returning from the Council hearing, now commanding the entire defensive strategy. Standard intimidation tactics. Show overwhelming force. Make resistance seem impossible. Engineer Yoon Ji-hye adjusted her glasses and pointed at the Council fleet formation. Their ships are big and powerful, but look at how they move. Everything is predictable. They fly in neat formations. They follow standard tactical doctrines. They have been the dominant power for so long that they have forgotten how to innovate. Admiral Choi nodded slowly. That is their weakness. They think there is only one way to fight a war. The right way. The civilized way. They have rules and regulations for everything, including combat. And we are going to break every single one of those rules, Taeyang said with a thin smile. The command center was buried 2 kilometers below the surface of Luna, Earth's moon. Around them, hundreds of officers and technicians worked at their stations coordinating the defense of humanity's home system. On the walls, dozens of screens showed different views, Earth hanging in space, blue and beautiful. The orbital defense platforms that the Council did not know existed, the hidden weapons stations scattered throughout the asteroid belt, the colony ships that had secretly been converted into carriers for thousands of fighter drones. 5 years of preparation. 5 years of studying alien technology. 5 years of building, planning, and hoping they would never need any of it. But deep down, they had all known this day would come. Species as arrogant as the Council did not offer friendship to those they considered inferior. They offered submission or destruction. Status report. Admiral Choi commanded. A young officer named Song Mira read from her display. All defense platforms are operational. The electromagnetic pulse network is charged and ready. Drone fighters are deployed and awaiting activation codes. Colony fleets have reached their designated positions. Special operations teams report ready for insertion. Home fleet is assembled and hidden behind the moon. Home fleet was a generous term for what humanity had managed to build. 50 warships, cobbled together from reverse-engineered alien technology and human innovation. They were smaller than Council ships, less protected, and would probably lose in any direct engagement. But they were not designed for direct engagement. Commander Kang approached the display and highlighted several Council ships. These are their command vessels. Their fleet coordination depends on constant communication between these ships. If we can disrupt that communication, their formation will fall apart. They will have to rely on individual ship commanders, and those commanders are trained to wait for orders. What about their shields? Admiral Choi asked. Engineer Yoon pulled up technical specifications. Their shield technology is impressive, but it has a weakness. The shields are designed to stop energy weapons and high-velocity projectiles. They consider those the only civilized forms of warfare. But shields require enormous amounts of power, and that power has to come from the ship's main reactor. Taeyang saw where she was going. So if we hit them with an electromagnetic pulse strong enough to temporarily disrupt their power systems. The shields drop, Yoon finished. Not for long, maybe 30 seconds before backup systems engage. But 30 seconds is enough. Enough for what? Song asked. Yoon smiled. It was not a nice smile. Enough for kinetic weapons. Simple, old-fashioned missiles. Dumb as rocks, but moving at a significant fraction of light speed. No guidance systems to jam. No energy signatures to detect. Just solid mass traveling very, very fast. The Council stopped using kinetic weapons 500 years ago. They consider them primitive. Their defensive systems are not designed to handle them in large quantities. Admiral Choi looked at his team. Let me make sure I understand the plan. We let them enter the system. We let them get close to Earth, confident in their superiority. Then we hit them with the EMP pulse, drop their shields, and launch every kinetic missile we have. Not every missile, Taeyang corrected. We save half for the second wave. After they recover from the first attack, they will adapt. They will try to modify their shields to stop kinetic weapons. But while they are doing that, Commander Kang's teams will already be on their ships. Kang nodded. We have been training for this. Small teams moving fast. We use captured Council technology to board their ships during the confusion. Once inside, we sabotage critical systems, life support, navigation, weapons. We make them more afraid of staying in the system than they are of retreating. It is risky, Admiral Choi said quietly. We will lose people. We will probably lose ships. And if this does not work, if the Council breaks through our defenses, Earth will be defenseless. Earth will never be defenseless, Taeyang said. Even if the fleet falls, every city has weapons. Every colony has trained fighters. Every human knows what is at stake. The Council can burn our ships, bomb our bases, and occupy our planets. But they cannot make us surrender. That is the difference between us and every other species they have conquered. We do not have a government that can surrender for everyone. We have billions of individuals, and every single one of them will fight. Engineer Yoon pulled up another display, this one showing Earth's surface. We have also prepared some surprises for ground invasion if it comes to that, but I do not think it will. The Council has never faced real resistance before. When they realize we are willing to make this costly, when they start losing ships and soldiers, they will hesitate, and hesitation will be their doom. Fleet Marshal Thexler, commander of the Council's enforcement fleet, reviewed his orders one final time. The mission was simple. Arrive at the human homeworld, demonstrate superior force, accept their surrender, place Council governors in charge of all human governments, begin resource extraction, standard procedure for integrating a new species. He had done this before, 7 times in his long career. It always followed the same pattern. The subject species would posture and threaten. They would promise resistance. But when they saw the fleet, when they truly understood the power of the Council, they would surrender. They always surrendered. Humans would be no different. They were a young species. barely out of their own star system. Their technology was primitive. Their military was small. Their government was divided into competing nations that could barely cooperate. They would see his 300 warships, and they would understand that resistance meant extinction. The fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system. Sensors immediately began scanning for human ships in defensive positions. The data that came back was surprising. The humans had several dozen small warships gathered near their moon. Pathetic. The fleet could destroy those ships without even slowing down. Send them the standard message, Thexaler ordered. Inform them they have 6 hours to power down their weapons and prepare for Council occupation. If they comply, no harm will come to their population. If they resist, we will demonstrate the consequences of defying the Council. The message was sent. The fleet began its approach to Earth, maintaining perfect formation. Everything was going according to plan. Everything was predictable. Everything was under control. Thexaler would later realize that this moment, this feeling of absolute confidence, was when he made his fatal mistake. He had underestimated humanity, and humanity was about to teach the Council a lesson they would never forget. Pilot Osora checked her fighter's systems for the third time. Everything was green, weapons armed, engines hot, communication links secure. Around her, floating in the cold darkness of space, 999 other fighters waited in silence. 1,000 pilots, 1,000 ships, all hidden behind the bulk of a large asteroid, all waiting for the signal. "This is insane," her wingman muttered over the private channel. "We are going to charge 300 capital ships with fighters." "Not charge," Sora corrected. "Swarm. There is a difference, and we are not alone." She was right. The fighters were just one part of the plan, but they were an important part. The Council had fighters too, but they used them for scouting and patrol work. They had never faced mass fighter tactics. They had certainly never faced what humanity was about to unleash. In the command center on Luna, Admiral Choi watched the Council fleet approach. They were taking their time, confident and unhurried. They had sent their surrender demand hours ago and were now waiting for humanity's response. They would get a response, just not the one they expected. "Distance?" Choi asked. "Passing the orbital defense line now," Song reported. "They are ignoring our platforms completely. They think they are too small to matter." Captain Taiyang smiled. "They think small means weak. They are about to learn otherwise." "Dr. Park, status of the EMP network?" Dr. Park Hana studied her console. "All stations report ready. The network covers their entire fleet. When we activate it, every ship will be hit simultaneously." "Commander Kang, are your teams in position?" Commander Kang's voice came through the speaker. "Affirmative. We are on 30 captured Council shuttles pretending to be supply ships. They have not even noticed us yet. When their shields drop, we will be inside their perimeter before they realize what is happening." Admiral Choi took a deep breath. This was the moment. Everything depended on the next few minutes. If the plan worked, humanity had a chance. If it failed, Earth would burn. "Send them our response," Choi ordered. The message was simple. Just 2 words in every language the Council used. "We refuse." On the bridge of his flagship, Fleet Marshal Thexaler stared at the human response with disbelief. They refused? Even now, with his fleet surrounding their pathetic planet, they dared to refuse? "Prepare weapons," he ordered. "Target their moonbase and their largest cities. We will show them the price of defiance." That was when the lights went out. Dr. Park activated the EMP network. 60 stations hidden throughout the Sol system fired simultaneously. The electromagnetic pulse was precisely calibrated, strong enough to overwhelm Council power systems, but not so strong it would permanently damage them. Humanity did not want to destroy the Council fleet. They wanted to capture it. 300 Council warships went dark at the exact same moment. Shields collapsed, weapons powered down, life support switched to backup systems, communications died. Inside each ship, emergency lighting clicked on as crews rushed to restart their main reactors. They had trained for power failures, of course. Every Council officer knew the procedures. Restore main power within 90 seconds. Bring shields back online. Resume combat operations. Simple, Routine, practiced 1,000 times, but they had never practiced it while under attack. Pilot Sora led her squadron out from behind the asteroid at maximum acceleration. 1,000 fighters emerged from hiding. Spots throughout the system, converging on the Council fleet from every direction. Each fighter carried 12 missiles. Not fancy guided missiles with sophisticated targeting systems. Simple kinetic missiles, dumb weapons that could not be jammed or hacked. Just explosive packages with rocket motors attached. The Council point defense systems would have easily destroyed them if those systems had been online, but they were not. The ships hung in space, dark and vulnerable, while 12,000 missiles raced toward them. Thexeler watched in horror as his sensor screens came back online just in time to show him the incoming weapons. "Brace for impact," he shouted, but there was nothing his crew could do. The shields were still down. The point defense was still offline. They were helpless. The first missiles struck with devastating force. Council ships were designed to absorb energy weapon hits against their shields. They were not designed to take physical impacts directly to their hull. Explosions blossomed across the fleet. Some ships lost engines, others lost weapon systems. A few of the smaller vessels simply broke apart under the assault. "Second wave, launch," Admiral Choi ordered. The orbital defense platforms opened fire. The Council had ignored them because they seemed too small to be dangerous. That was a mistake. Each platform was essentially a massive railgun, capable of accelerating a solid projectile to incredible speeds. They did not need to destroy Council ships. They just needed to damage them. 30 platforms fired. 30 solid slugs, each one massing several tons, struck 30 different Council vessels. The kinetic energy was tremendous. Hulls crumpled. Internal systems failed. One unlucky cruiser took a hit directly to its reactor containment, and the resulting explosion took out 2 ships beside it. Commander Kang's shuttles moved through the chaos. Council point defense systems were still offline, and even if they had been working, the shuttles were using Council identification codes. They flew right up to their target ships and latched onto airlocks. Teams of soldiers in powered armor breached the halls and poured inside. The Council crews were not expecting boarders. Why would they be? This was supposed to be a simple enforcement action against a primitive species, but now humans were inside their ships, moving through the corridors with brutal efficiency. They planted explosives on critical systems, cut power lines, and sabotaged navigation computers. Some teams went straight for the command decks, taking senior officers prisoner. On the flagship, Thexeler finally got his shields back online. His weapons were still offline, his communications were spotty, but at least he had shields. He looked at his tactical display and felt his blood run cold. His fleet was in chaos. 70 ships showing critical damage, 30 more completely disabled, fighters swarming everywhere, and now reports coming in of human soldiers on board multiple vessels. "All ships retreat," he ordered. "Fall back to the rally point. Get out of this system." But retreating was easier said than done. Many ships had damaged engines. Others had lost navigation. The neat formation that entered the system was now a scattered mess, with each ship trying to escape on its own. And the humans were not done yet. Captain Taeyang brought the human fleet out from behind the moon. 50 warships, small and fast, darted into the Council formation. They targeted damaged ships, the ones that could not defend themselves properly. Railguns fired, missile pods launched, and for the first time in 1,000 years, Council ships began to surrender. Dr. Park monitored the battle from her station, watching the numbers change on her screens. Council ships destroyed, 15. Council ships disabled, 93. Council ships retreating, 142. Council ships surrendered, 50. "We did it," Song whispered. "We actually did it." "Not yet," Admiral Choi said. "Not until they leave the system. Keep the pressure on. Do not let them regroup." Pilot Sora pursued a fleeing Council destroyer, her fighter weaving between debris and disabled ships. Her missiles were gone, but she still had her guns. She fired burst after burst into the destroyer's engines, adding to the damage it had already taken. Finally, the ship came to a halt and broadcast a surrender signal. "This is Pilot Sora to all Council ships," she transmitted on all frequencies. "You came here to conquer Earth. You came here to make us slaves. But we are humans and we do not surrender. We do not bow. We do not break. Leave this system now or stay here forever." Fleet Marshal Thexaler gathered what remained of his fleet and jumped to faster-than-light speed, fleeing the Sol system in complete disarray. He had lost 40% of his fleet. Hundreds of Council soldiers were prisoners on board captured ships. And worst of all, the humans had fought with tactics the Council considered barbaric and uncivilized. But those tactics had worked. And now the entire galaxy would learn what happened when you threatened humanity. The Council had made their mistake. Now they would pay the price. The news of the Council's defeat spread across the galaxy like wildfire. 300 warships sent to conquer a primitive world, and less than half returned. The mighty Galactic Council, undefeated for 1,000 years, had been humiliated by a species that barely knew how to travel between stars. In the Council chambers, High Chancellor Vorthex listened to Fleet Marshal Thexaler's report with growing horror. The Marshal's voice shook as he described the battle. Electromagnetic pulses that shut down their entire fleet. Primitive kinetic weapons used with devastating effectiveness. Soldiers boarding Council ships and sabotaging them from within. Fighter swarms attacking with suicidal determination. They fought like animals, Thexaler said. No honor, no rules. They used tactics that civilized species abandoned centuries ago. And those tactics worked, Councillor Melkara pointed out coldly. That is what matters. They won. We lost. Vorthex slammed one of his forehands on the table. This cannot stand. We will assemble a larger fleet. We will crush them completely. We will make an example of Earth that every species in the galaxy will remember. And what if they defeat that fleet too? A voice asked from the back of the chamber. It was Councillor Rendal, a member of the Talari species. The Talari had been protected subjects for 300 years. They had once numbered 6 billion. Now barely 2 billion survived, scattered across mining colonies and factory worlds. Rendal spoke rarely in council meetings, but when he did, everyone listened. What if the humans are simply better at warfare than we are? Rendal continued. What if all our power and technology mean nothing against an enemy who refuses to fight the way we expect? What if we send another fleet and lose that one too? Impossible, Melkara hissed. We are the Council. We rule 3,000 star systems. No single world can stand against us. And yet one world just did, Rendal said quietly. Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Choi Minho was not celebrating. Victory in one battle did not mean victory in the war. The Council would return, probably with a much larger fleet. Humanity had surprised them once, but that surprise was gone now. The next battle would be much harder, but Admiral Choi was not planning to wait for the next battle to come to him. We take the fight to them, he told his senior officers. Captain Taeyang, now promoted to Admiral, stood beside him studying star charts. Commander Kang was there too, along with Dr. Park and dozens of other key personnel. The Council thinks they can recover, regroup, and come back stronger, Choi continued. We do not give them that chance. We strike their military bases. We disrupt their supply lines. We show them that declaring war on humanity was the worst mistake they ever made. We do not have enough ships for a sustained offensive, Admiral Taeyang pointed out. We barely won defending our home system. How can we possibly attack Council territory? Dr. Park pulled up a holographic map of the galaxy. We do not need to conquer their territory. We just need to make holding it too expensive. Look at their empire. 3,000 star systems, but most of them are subjugated species. Species that never wanted to join the Council. Species that only submit because they have no choice. You want to start rebellions, Commander Kang said, understanding immediately. Exactly, Park confirmed. We go to these worlds. We share our technology. We train their resistance fighters. We show them that the Council can be beaten, and most importantly, we give them hope. Ambassador Li Jiwan entered the room at that moment. She had just returned from a secret mission to contact other species. I have good news. Several species are willing to work with us. The Talari have a strong underground resistance movement. The Koshari want revenge for what the Council did to their worlds. Even some of the smaller Council member states are quietly expressing support for our cause. This is bigger than just Earth now, Admiral Choi said. This is about freedom for the entire galaxy. The Council has held power through fear for too long. It is time someone challenged that power. On the mining world of Kosh 7, Yoon Junho walked through the underground tunnels where the resistance met. Yuno was an engineer, sent by Earth to help organize the Koshari people. He had been on the planet for 3 weeks, teaching them how to build weapons, how to encrypt communications, how to fight back against their oppressors. The Koshari were a peaceful species by nature. They had built a beautiful civilization based on art and philosophy. Then the council came. The council discovered that Koshari worlds were rich in rare minerals, so they declared the Koshari to be protected subjects, took control of their government, and turned their planets into mining operations. Now the Koshari worked in their own mines as slaves, extracting wealth that went to the council while their people starved. But Junho was teaching them that slavery did not have to be forever. The council thinks you are weak, Junho told the gathered resistance fighters. They think you will never fight back because you are a peaceful people. But there is a difference between being peaceful and being helpless. Humans were peaceful once too. We liked art and philosophy just like you. But when someone threatens what we love, when someone tries to enslave us, we fight. He showed them footage of the Battle of Sol. The Koshari watched in amazement as human fighters swarmed the council fleet. They watched council ships retreat in chaos. They saw that the mighty council could bleed. You can do this too, Junho said. You do not need fancy weapons. You do not need a huge fleet. You just need the courage to say no. You need the willingness to make the council pay for every day they occupy your world. And you need to remember that you are not alone. Humanity stands with you, and we will teach you everything we know about resistance. The rebellion on Kosh 7 began 3 days later. Workers in the mines refused to work. When council overseers tried to force them, the workers fought back. It was not a big fight. Just a few dozen Koshari with improvised weapons against a squad of council security troops. But it was enough. The council had to send reinforcements. They had to pull troops from other worlds. They had to dedicate resources to holding a planet that had been peaceful for 50 years. And while they were doing that, humanity struck somewhere else. Admiral Taeyang led a small fleet to attack a council military supply depot. They jumped into the system, destroyed the depot, and jumped out before reinforcements could arrive. The raid lasted less than an hour, but it destroyed supplies meant for 20 different council fleets. Commander Kang infiltrated a council communications hub and planted a virus in their network. For 3 days, council military communications were chaos. Orders got lost. Ships went to the wrong places. Coordination fell apart. Dr. Park released evidence to the Galactic media network showing council atrocities. Images of subjugated species working as slaves. Documents proving the council had committed genocide against species that resisted too effectively. Video of council representatives discussing how to divide Earth's population into work units. The propaganda war was just as important as the shooting war. The council had always controlled the narrative. They portrayed themselves as benevolent protectors bringing order to the galaxy. But now everyone could see the truth. The council was not protecting anyone. They were building an empire on the backs of conquered peoples. In the council chambers, High Chancellor Vortex watched his empire begin to fracture. Rebellions on 17 worlds, supply lines disrupted, communication networks compromised, and worst of all, public opinion turning against the council. Member species that had always been loyal were now asking questions. Why did we attack the humans? What right do we have to conquer other species? Should we be afraid of what humanity might do to us if we continue supporting the council? We are losing control, Melkara admitted. Not because humanity is militarily stronger than us. We still have more ships, more soldiers, more resources. We are losing because they are fighting a different kind of war. They are turning our own empire against us. Then we need to make peace, Rendell said. We need to end this before the entire galaxy erupts in rebellion. Peace? Vortex roared. With humans? After they humiliated us? After they destroyed our fleet and spread chaos across our territories? Never. Then you will lose everything, Rendell said calmly. Your pride will cost you your empire, because humanity has shown the galaxy something we had all forgotten. The Council is not invincible. And if the Council can be beaten once, it can be beaten again. All across the galaxy, subjugated species looked up at the stars and wondered, if humans could defy the Council and survive, could they? If Earth could win its freedom, could they win theirs? The answer they were beginning to realize was yes, and that realization terrified the Council more than any human weapon ever could. 18 months after the Battle of Sol, High Chancellor Vortex stood before what remained of the Galactic Council and admitted defeat. The chamber that once held thousands of representatives now held barely half that number. Many species had withdrawn their support. Others had openly joined the rebellion. The Council's empire was collapsing and everyone knew it. We request negotiations with the human government, Vortex said, his voice heavy with exhaustion. His forearms hung limply at his sides. He looked old, defeated, broken. We acknowledge that continued conflict serves no one. We are willing to discuss terms. Ambassador Li Jiwan sat in the human delegation area and felt no satisfaction at the council's surrender. Too many people had died on both sides. Too many worlds had been caught in the fighting. Victory tasted like ashes even though it was necessary. The fighting ends today, Li announced. But before we discuss peace, there must be accountability. The council's leaders will stand trial for their crimes. Every species that was conquered will have their say. Every atrocity will be investigated. Justice is not negotiable, Councillor Melkara hissed in anger. You want to put us on trial? You want to judge us? We were bringing order to the galaxy. You were building an empire on the bones of conquered peoples, Dr. Park said coldly. We have the evidence. We have the testimony. We have the bodies. 47 species were subjugated by the Council. Billions died in your wars of conquest. You do not get to walk away from that. Admiral Choi Minho stood beside the diplomats, his military uniform spotless despite 18 months of constant warfare. The armed forces of Earth and our allies will enforce the peace. Any species that wants to keep fighting can try. But I think you all know how that will end. The Council knew. They had learned the hard way that humans did not fight like other species. Humans adapted. Humans innovated. Humans simply refused to lose. Every time the Council thought they had found a counter to human tactics, humans invented something new. Every time the Council gained an advantage, humans found a way to turn it against them. The war had been costly for both sides, but the Council could not sustain their losses. They were fighting rebellions on dozens of worlds. Their economy was collapsing under the strain. Their member species were abandoning them. Meanwhile, humanity seemed to have unlimited determination and an endless supply of new ideas for making warfare more effective. In a secure facility on Earth, Commander Kang supervised the detention of Council war criminals. Fleet Marshal Thexler was there, the commander who had led the initial attack on Earth. So were dozens of other senior Council officials, arrested by joint human-alien teams. You cannot do this, Thexler protested. I was following orders. I was doing my duty as a Council officer. Following orders is not an excuse, Kang said. You knew what the Council was doing. You knew about the conquered species. You knew about the atrocities. You chose to serve that system anyway. Now you will face the consequences. The trial took 6 months. Representatives from every subjugated species testified. They spoke of families torn apart, cultures destroyed, worlds stripped of resources. They showed evidence of massacres, forced labor camps, and systematic oppression. The Council's defense was weak. They claimed they were bringing civilization to primitive species. They claimed they were creating order from chaos. They claimed everything they did was necessary. No one believed them. President Han Ji-woo of Earth addressed the new Galactic Assembly, formed from the ruins of the Council. Representatives from 200 species filled the chamber, including many that had never been allowed into the old Council. We did not fight this war for conquest, Han said. We fought it for freedom, not just freedom for humans, but freedom for every species in the galaxy. The old Council believed that might made right. They believed that advanced technology gave them the authority to rule over others. We reject that completely. She held up a document projected on screens throughout the chamber. This is the new Galactic Charter. Every species, regardless of size or military power, gets an equal vote. No species can be conquered or subjugated. No species can be exploited for their resources without fair compensation. Technology will be shared, not hoarded, and any violations of these principles will be met with collective action. Representative Song Mira of the Talari species stood to speak. The Talari had been among the first to join humanity's cause, and they had fought bravely throughout the war. My people were slaves of the Council for 300 years. We watched our population fall from 6 billion to 2 billion. We lost our language, our culture, our identity. The Council told us this was necessary. They told us this was for our own good. Her voice strengthened. But humans told us something different. They told us that freedom was our right, not a privilege granted by our masters. They taught us to fight. They stood beside us when we rose up against our oppressors. And now, for the first time in 3 centuries, Talari children will grow up free. We owe humanity a debt we can never repay. You owe us nothing, Admiral Taeyang responded. Freedom is not something one species gives to another. It is something every species must claim for themselves. We just helped you remember that you were never meant to be slaves. Dr. Park presented the new technology sharing protocols. The Council had controlled access to advanced technology, only giving it to species that submitted to their authority. Under the new system, any species could access any technology, as long as they agreed not to use it for conquest. The Council fell because they stopped innovating, Park explained. They became stagnant, relying on their existing advantages. But humanity thrives on innovation. We improve, we adapt, we grow, and now we will share that approach with the entire galaxy. Imagine what we can accomplish if every species contributes their unique perspective and knowledge. The vote on the new Galactic Charter was unanimous. Even former Council species supported it, recognizing that the old system was unsustainable. A new era was beginning, one based on cooperation instead of domination. Yoon Junho returned to Kosh 7 to help the Koshari rebuild. The mining operations were shut down. The Council overseers were gone. The Koshari were free to reclaim their world and their culture. It would take years, maybe generations, but they finally had hope. What will humans do now? A young Koshari artist asked Junho. Will you become the new council? Will you rule the galaxy? Junho laughed. No, that is not who we are. We do not want to rule anyone. We just want to live free, and we want everyone else to have that same freedom. Besides, ruling a galactic empire sounds exhausting. We have better things to do. Like what? Like exploring, learning, creating, building relationships with new species. There is a whole galaxy out there, full of wonders we have not seen yet. Why would we waste time trying to control it? Pilot Osora accepted a new assignment, leading an exploration fleet into uncharted regions of the galaxy. The war was over, but there was still so much to discover. She thought about the young pilot she had been 18 months ago, nervous and afraid before the Battle of Sol. She was different now. They all were. The war had changed humanity, just as it had changed the galaxy. But some things had not changed. Humans were still curious, still determined, still unwilling to back down when something important was at stake. In the council chambers, now renamed the Galactic Assembly Hall, Ambassador Lee looked at the gathered representatives and allowed herself a small smile. The fight had been long and difficult. The cost had been high, but it had been worth it. High Chancellor Vortex and his inner circle had been found guilty of crimes against sapient species. They would spend the rest of their lives in detention. Their power broken, their empire dissolved. Some people called for execution, but Lee had argued for mercy. Not because they deserved it, but because humanity needed to prove they were different from the Council. Justice, not revenge. As the assembly adjourned for the day, Councillor Rendall approached the human delegation. Thank you, he said simply. For everything. The Talari will not forget what you did for us. Remember it by staying free, Lee replied. Remember it by helping other species who still struggle against oppression. That is all the thanks we need. Admiral Choi stood at the observation window looking out at the stars. His fleet was being decommissioned. Most of the warships would be converted to exploration vessels or cargo haulers. Humanity had built a powerful military out of necessity, but they had no desire to maintain it forever. There were better uses for those resources. Do you think they learned their lesson? Commander Kang asked, joining him at the window. The former council species, I mean. Do you think they will try to rebuild their empire someday? Some of them might try, Choi admitted. But they will not succeed, because now the galaxy knows the truth. Power does not come from having the biggest fleet or the most advanced technology. Power comes from having something worth fighting for. And people who fight for their freedom will always defeat. People who fight for conquest, President. Han addressed Earth citizens in a broadcast that reached every human settlement across the solar system. Today we celebrate victory, but let us also remember why we fought. Not for glory, not for power, not for revenge. We fought because someone threatened our home. We fought because someone tried to make us slaves. We fought because sometimes fighting is the only way to preserve what matters most. She paused, letting her words sink in. But the war is over now. Now comes the harder work of building a real peace, of creating a galaxy where every species can thrive, of proving that freedom and cooperation are stronger than tyranny and force. This will take time. It will take patience. It will take all of us working together. But if we could win this war, we can certainly win this peace. The galaxy would remember this time as the Great Liberation, the time when humanity arrived on the galactic stage and changed everything, the time when the Galactic Council fell and was replaced by something better, the time when conquered species reclaimed their freedom and their dignity. And if anyone in the future ever forgot, if any new empire rose and tried to subjugate others, they would be reminded of what happened when you threatened humanity. They would be reminded that humans do not surrender. Humans do not bow. Humans do not break. The Council had learned that lesson the hard way, and the galaxy would never forget.